Hello, and welcome to a very special Fake E3 edition of Starside Chat. It is the 2024 Fake E3 Summer Games Fest episode. Joining me as always is Aaron Kappa.
Hello!
And of course I'm Zach, and we're finally getting into Fake E3. We're sort of in a weird schedule where we record like in the middle of like when they're still doing showcases. I think we're going to get like the bulk of the interesting showcases. There is like a Ubisoft Forward tomorrow as we're recording this. And
they haven't announced it yet, but there will probably be a Nintendo Direct either this week or next week. They said they're going to have a June Direct.
Yeah, and I feel like EA always like at random is like, hey, a month or two later, we're going to do our thing now.
Yeah.
But I guess tying into that, Dragon Age, because BioWare is owned by EA, and they're going to do like their own special like 15-minute gameplay trailer showcase thing for Dragon Age The Veilguard, which we'll talk more about later, but that's going to be on like Tuesday morning. So
yeah, the 11th.
It will be just after we're done recording and posting this episode. So I guess we'll get into all of that on next week's show. But, I mean, I don't even know where to start with all of this. We do have a little bit of news. I guess, like, the one piece of news that we'll get into before we, like, actually start talking showcases. Like a Dragon is getting a live-action TV show adaptation, or is this a movie?
I think it's a TV show, because there already was a movie back in the day.
Yeah, so this is coming later this fall, I believe, on Amazon. And it's like they're going to release it in batches of like 3 episodes, one on October 25th and then another set of 3 on November 1st. But yeah, this is kind of cool. What do you think of this?
I'll check it out, I think. I have Amazon Prime, as most people do. And I've been pretty happy with a lot of the shows they've put out. Like I watched that Mr. and Mrs. Smith one, which I really enjoyed. Obviously, their seasons of The Expanse were pretty good. But yeah, I think I tend to think that Prime shows are slightly higher quality than like Netflix shows, which I've been disappointed in lately. So yeah, I think I will check this out. I'm interested. I don't really know anything about Kiryu, but I think he's the main protagonist that is going to be in this show.
Yeah, I think I learned a lot about him just through this one game I played, basically, most recently. And he's kind of like the big character that's sort of coming back for his sort of final hurrah, so to speak. But
I know he erased his name successfully.
Yes, he did erase it. Unfortunately, he did sort of unerase it a little bit. In this last game, because he's just kind of there. I don't know if they really address that or if that's like really a thing. That's more me just being a little critical of how they handled it at times within the fiction. But it was I almost do want to go back and play that one little, because it's supposed to be shorter. They released a game game, The Man Who Erased His Name, like last fall.
Yeah, it was a quick one. It wasn't as long as regular Yakuza games.
But it does go back to like the beat 'em up style as opposed to the turn-based stuff. So I don't know. And with that out of the way, let's start in on fake E3 showcases, because there were a bunch of them to get to. I don't think we're going to cover all of them in depth. Mainly, we're going to hit some of the highlights for us, and then we're going to get into the Xbox one, because I think that one is worth going through.
Yeah. So, start of the season. Technically, I guess you could argue that state of play from last week or a couple weeks ago was the start of the press conferences, although I don't even know that Sony would call that the start of Fake E3, because that seemed like just something they maybe would have even done regardless of the time of season.
That just seemed like sort of a quarterly state of play type of thing. It didn't feel like a full-on E3 style showcase, whereas the rest of this stuff is going for that in spirit.
Yeah, the real start would be Keighley's showcase, the Summer Games Fest, which unfortunately was a bit of a bummer, I have to say. Keighley is very good about on Twitter afterwards, after most showcases, being like, even if it's one that he puts on, he'll be like, what would you rate this? And at least when I looked at it, everybody was rating it as a D, which is a bummer to see. But it was a weird mix of stuff, I have to say. And he did get out ahead of it. He did a little Q&A like the day before where he said like lower your expectations. There's not going to be a huge number of like new reveals. We're going to be focusing on stuff that's already been announced, and specifically he was really hitting hard that like a lot of the games in this showcase were made by small teams, and specifically even games that are made by one person. But yeah, what was your vibe on this? I wasn't mad at it, but I also was not thrilled by it.
Yeah, I feel like we came away with saying very similar things from the 2023 Summer Games Fest showcase as well. I feel like they're a little bit in a weird place where everybody's doing their own thing, and so Keighley's just trying to get what he can in terms of being able to show stuff. But like when you have basically Monster Hunter Wilds like closing out more than one showcase, you kind of know it's sort of not a great year for like big game announcements, especially when like Monster Hunter Wilds isn't coming out this year, and it closed out the like it was one of the later sort of closing showcases in that State of Play and Summer Games Fest. So so I don't know. There was like some cool stuff in there, but also weird that Lego Horizons Adventures wasn't in the Sony State of Play. Yeah. And then they had like Star Wars Outlaws and like a couple other things that you would expect to see maybe in like their own sort of separate showcase for like the publisher. But
that Outlaws was weird because it very clearly was just setting up that they're going to have a bigger thing later in the week. But he got like just a little bit, he got like a sizzle reel of what's probably going to be more of like a 30-minute video we're going to watch on Tuesday or whatever. It was odd. All like most of these things, I would say the most impressive thing he got was the Civilization 7, which was not on my radar at all.
Yeah, and actually Civ 6 is like $2.99 on Steam right now as sort of like a summer promotional thing leading up to their announcement of Civ 7. So that's kind of an interesting thing if you like that style of game. But yeah, they had that, and then they had like a lot of stuff we knew about already, like Black Myth Wukong and Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 and Metaphor Re Fantasio. The thing that we debated, like, will they have some sort of celebrity guest appearance? And the closest thing they had to that was that Blum guy from Blumhouse who came out on stage to say, hey, guess what? We're like going to be publishing games now under Blumhouse. And it was like Five Nights at Freddy's stuff or whatever.
Would you count the Tim Robinson? Because there was a part of his pre-recorded thing where he said like, hey, Jeff, what's up? Like he was like, it was recorded specifically for this. Yeah. I don't even know if that would count though, because he wasn't there.
He wasn't actually on stage, but it was close.
But yeah, not only was there no celebrity guest, there was no Death Stranding, no Kojima at all.
Yeah, that was my other prediction, was that they would have some sort of Kojima thing happening there, and that didn't happen.
No Kojima, which is wild. Because I think he was in LA. I feel like I saw pictures on Instagram where he was like hanging out with somebody. Maybe that was in Japan though, but I don't know. Yeah, no Kojima, not really any. I mean, I've said this many times on the podcast. My perfect formula for a good showcase. I don't think it had any of them. Yeah. It did not start with something. Like, I guess it kind of started with something. That's the one thing it had. Lego Horizon Adventures was kind of like, what is this? Oh, it's a Lego game. Oh, it's a Horizon game. Oh, it's coming to PS5 as well as Nintendo Switch and PC. That's crazy. But the middle part was not chock full of interesting stuff, and the final thing they had was also Monster Hunter Wilds again. So
they did have Phantom Blade Zero, but I don't recall a lot about that. Yeah, I don't know if it made me excited in the way they were expecting it to. But
I will say the only other thing I want to shout out from this showcase was, and this is, I guess, also something that was a good get, was the Alan Wake 2 Night Springs DLC, which actually kind of made me want to play Alan Wake 2.
Yeah, if you can like bring out something like that, that's like a DLC for a beloved game, and then be like, hey, guess what? It's like basically ready to play.
Drop it
that's sort of another thing that we could probably add to the core tenants. You need something that you can be like, hey, here's this really cool thing that is like basically available to play right away. And so they did get that, but
that was very cool. That was maybe my thing of his show. My favorite thing from that show was the Alan Wake 2 thing, and I never played Alan Wake 2 because it looked too scary, but the fact that this DLC is going to include Jesse from Control makes me want to go in and just experience it all, because I always forget that it's the same universe, but it is, and I can't wait for Control 2 or whatever it's going to be called whenever that's happening, but I loved Control.
I did enjoy getting to see a little bit more of that Metaphor ReFantazio game, because I do like the Persona games, and so I'm a little bit curious just to see like what this game ends up being. And they showed not just a release date, but they sort of showed how like the characters transform into their jobs, which they call archetypes, which is sort of a similar but different twist on like how personas work, I feel like. But so that was kind of cool. And then I am a little bit curious about what Dune Awakening is going to be, just because like I don't understand how you're going to make like sort of an MMO out of that. But
well, and even the crazier thing about that, which by the way, when they said at the end, when they reminded us all that it was an MMO, a survival MMO, I was like, man, how is this going to work? But the crazy thing about that trailer is it was about the story, and I guess this version of Dune is taking place in an alternate reality, an alternate timeline where Paul Atreides was never born. Because famously, I mean, I had one of my friends is really into Dune, and he sort of explained all the lore to me. And like the main crux of the story of Dune is his mom is like a Bene Gesserit who was supposed to continue this like centuries-long plan by having a daughter that was going to inherit all this stuff, but instead, because of love, she had a male child, which is Paul, which was not the plan. And that's what kind of puts things into motion a little bit in the first book of Dune. But this is an alternate timeline where things go according to plan. And so Paul Atreides is never born, and Duke Leto, or however you say his name, never dies. And a bunch of other stuff happens, which is interesting from a lore perspective. But again, like you said, I don't know how this is a survival MMO. Yeah. I don't know how that makes sense at all. But that was an interesting reveal. That
is why I'm curious to see like more from that game, because I just don't understand. Like I can't conceptualize how it's going to work. So I just want to see more of it. But and then the other thing that nobody was excited about that I was a little bit curious about was that New World Eternum thing. And I was like, man, should I go back into that game and see how it's changed? Because like, if you recall, when it first came out, I played it for like a solid 30, 40 hours and was like kind of into it. And then it just kind of disappeared for a long time. And evidently they've still been working on it. And they said it's coming to PS5 and Xbox, and this like update is coming out in October or whatever. And he specifically said, Jeff Keighley on stage said, you can play this solo or in co-op and it will have crossplay. And I was like, maybe I should give it another shot, because there was a lot of like concepts in there, a lot of ideas that I kind of liked. I just didn't love, I don't know, some of the MMO trappings of it, but I not enough to have jumped back in just yet, but maybe we'll see. And then I guess they had Day of the Devs and Devolver Digital. Was there anything that stood out to you about those showcases?
Yes. So I only really want to talk about one thing. First of all, what was your vibe with Devolver? Did you watch that whole thing, or did you kind of skip through it?
I kind of skipped through some of it, or watched it on like 2x speed, waiting for something to sort of catch my interest. And I think we're going to say the same thing as the one sort of highlight from it.
Yes, a couple days before the showcase, Heart Machine, who famously made Hyper Light Drifter, which is a game that I love dearly, tweeted a little picture, or I'm sorry, Devolver tweeted it, I think, just like a kind of a silhouette of someone in sort of a pixel-esque like thing. It didn't seem like it was going to be three-dimensional, of just like a still image, or maybe it was a GIF or something, to let everybody know, like, hey, we're Heart Machine. In addition to Hyper Light Breakers, we're also working on something else, which will be revealed at the Devolver show, which it was, and that game is Possessors, which seems to me to be a maybe a Metroidvania. It's at least a side scroller.
In my notes, I put down Metroidvania question mark.
Yeah, exactly. And it looks cool. It's not exactly pixelated, I would say. It's more, how would you describe this? It's almost kind of like Inside a little bit, where it's like low poly-ish kind of.
A little bit low poly, kind of painterly look.
Yeah.
Coming 2025 to console and PC, but crazy to me that they're able to be working on Hyper Light Breaker and this at the same time. I didn't think Heart Machine was that big.
I didn't either. I thought it was just I knew it was bigger than just that Alex Preston guy, but
sure.
This looks great though. If this is a Metroidvania, I don't want to get faked out again. Like there was that game that Have a Good Death. What was that? Was that was called?
Have a Good Death? It was something like that. Yeah, and I loved
the look of that.
It was a roguelike instead of
it was a
Metroidvania.
roguelike. Yeah, not great. I watched someone play it and it seemed fine, but it could have been so much more. This I think is not going to be that same trap. I think it is actually going to be a Metroidvania. Although
if this is a Metroidvania, I am more interested in this than Hyper Light Breaker. To be honest,
I am as well, which is a bummer because I don't know. I don't like the 3D Solar Ash. We were both pretty cold on Solar Ash for whatever reason. But
that, and isn't it also a roguelike?
Is it roguelike in a Solar Ash?
No. Hyper Light Breaker.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, it's procedurally generated.
Yeah, that's partially why.
But that's really the only thing I wanted to talk about with this. So Devolver famously, they always do a crazy zany show, and this one, generally it's focused around like an office culture of like a crazy company where there's like crazy stuff going on. But this one was more narrative. It was about like a guy who had like was like living in a house and was like insane or something.
Yeah.
The interstitials I didn't really care about, but I don't. They only showed like 5 or 6 games, and this was the only one I'm interested in that Anchorfoot one, but we had already seen footage of that.
Yeah, and people will be excited about the DLC for Talos Principle 2. Because people like that game a lot. I did think Tenjutsu, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's from the lead designer of Dead Cells, so that might be kind of a cool game. It is a roguelike though, so I don't know if I'll get into it, but it seems like if you got somebody who designed Dead Cells, I mean, people are going to pay attention to that.
So both of us watched the in-between shows on Saturday. I still can't remember the name of it. It's not the Humble.
I think it's what is that?
Cozy Bundle.
It's not Humble Bundle, but
game. Not important. We both watched that and we were both sort of like, oh, there's nothing we really need to talk about. Also, we watched those other weird shows, those like future PC shows. Those also were not anything we really need to cover, but big show.
Well, before we get to the Xbox one, there was the Guerrilla Collective showcase.
And I didn't watch that. Only you did.
Yeah, I thought that Egg On game, I was trying to describe this for you before we started recording, but that is like a game that's sort of inspired by that weird what is the name of that developer that makes those like weird, like Getting Over It, and there was another one where like movement is sort of wonky and weird, like on purpose to make it sort of yeah, I think that's right. Inspired by that style of game, but you're like rolling an egg up these like 2x4s on this like house construction site basically, and if you fall off of them, you can like break the egg, but it'll regenerate, but like you fall down through cracks and you have to basically start your climb all over again.
Wholesome Direct is what that was called.
Wholesome, that's what it's called. Anyway, I thought that was like kind of a interesting, silly, weird sort of game that might get like streamers' attention when it comes out at some point, in the same way Getting Over It did. And then I think they showed Sky Ocean's Wings for Hire, which I thought had an art style that looked kind of like a cross between Hayao Miyazaki and Akira Toriyama, where you're like basically building a crew and you're like customizing your airship and you're flying around and doing like turn-based dogfights basically. And I'm a little bit curious about that. That seemed like maybe an interesting game. But other than that, there wasn't really a lot that stood out to me about this showcase, this Guerrilla Collective thing. Okay, now we can get into Xbox.
Now, just to get it out of the way, they did not reveal Silk Song. Silk Song did not reveal itself.
They sort of hit you with the, okay, we got one more thing though. And I was like, ooh, is this going to be it? And then the first thing I wrote down was not Silk Song.
Yeah. So I still have hope that it could be that they're waiting for the Nintendo Direct. That would be a huge get for Nintendo. I think the very first time we saw Silk Song was at a Direct, and it was in the Nintendo like Playhouse they used to do after E3. They did like a 20-minute, was it called Playhouse? Or Treehouse, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. Nintendo Treehouse.
You can go back and watch like a 20-minute segment on Silk Song from forever ago. So it could be that they still have the desire to be on a Nintendo type of show. So that could still happen. I'm not giving up hope for this year having Silk Song. But other than that, this was, I think, the showcase to beat. And I think it did pretty well.
I thought this was great, honestly. It blew the Sony showcase out of the water.
Yeah, for sure.
Although I guess we've already sort of described that as like a smaller, like quarterly state of play type of thing. So maybe they weren't sort of gunning for, going neck and neck with Xbox here. But this showcase was much bigger. It had a lot of like cool stuff, a lot of new stuff, but also like some interesting expansions for ongoing games that are well liked. And so, yeah, I would rate this one, of the shows we saw, I would definitely rate this probably the highest.
I agree. Do you want to just, for this one specifically, do you want to just go down the line and talk about everything?
Yeah, let's go through it.
They started it out with, they now own Call of Duty, so they were just throwing it all on the table. They started out with, here's Call of Duty Black Ops 6, here's an elongated thing, coming out in October, on Game Pass, and then that was the last thing they showed as well, or not the last thing. Then it wasn't their one more thing, but they did finish the show out with that.
They had like a separate Call of Duty showcase right after the Xbox One ended. So,
and it was a 1-2 punch of here's this Call of Duty that we now own. Also, remember we own Bethesda. Here is Doom: The Dark Ages. What did you think of this?
That looked cool. So he's basically got Captain America's shield, except it has like a chainsaw that you can activate on the outside part of it, and then you can throw it and like kill enemies, and maybe it'll return to you. I don't know.
I think it will.
Super cool. I liked the previous Doom games that they've made, so I'm on board for this one coming 2025.
Looks cool. It's in the new lore of Doom, where in Doom 2016 you sort of were woken up from a slumber, and this is pre that. I like it's in a medieval setting, and I don't think any of it is going to take place on Earth. It's going to take place on alien worlds, but all the old looking, you have a gun that seems to grind up skulls and just shoot skull matter, which is cool. You have you have the shield, which is an interesting new mechanic where you can block, but you can also it's got a circular saw on it that you can rev up and throw.
And it seemed like maybe he had a mace as well, on a chain that he was throwing around. I don't know.
Very cool. Yeah, there was some grappling mechanics as well. So they've altered the Doom guy's appearance a little bit. So famously, in the last one, they added the 2 cannons on the back where you could shoot fire or ice or whatever. This one, those are gone. And now you have this kind of animal hide mantle that's coming off the back of you, which is an interesting look. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Very curious to see more of this. I assume there's going to be, it's going to be in the same vein as the previous 2 games where, it's going to be, I would think it's going to be level based and each level is going to have their objectives. I always find that to be, that was my favorite part of Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal is looking at all the side objectives and making sure I completed all of those by the end of the level to maximize the points you get or whatever. Very excited for this. It was not my game of the show, but it was maybe my number 2.
Yeah, I was pretty high on it as well. I actually didn't think of what my game of the show is, but because I thought there was a handful of things that I was yeah, that's really cool. But I guess maybe you're right. Maybe it is up there.
What's your vibe on State of Decay 3?
Now, I did play back in the day the first State of Decay, which I feel was a 360 Xbox Live arcade game.
That one was top down, right?
I don't think so. I thought it was third person, but I have only the vaguest recollection of that game. I think they're cool in as far as zombie games go, like the formula that they have where you're sort of building up these encampments. If I'm recalling correctly, because it's been so long since I played that first State of Decay, and I don't know how the games have changed in that time, but I feel like you could play as like different characters, and then if they died, it was like permadeath. And so, okay, well, you lost that survivor, so time to play as a different one. And you were like collecting supplies and trying to keep people alive, you know. So it had like some cool ideas for like a post-apocalyptic zombie style game, but that's not really just my thing anymore. So I'm not super hot on this type of thing, but I think it is cool that they are doing a third one and it's going to come to Game Pass.
I always think about that Game Informer thing back when everybody that is at MidMax was still at Game Informer. They did a cover story for that motorcycle zombie game. And one of the questions that they asked the developer was like, what do you say to people who say they're like tired of zombie games now? And the developer's like, I hope that's not the case, but I think it is. I could take or leave zombie games.
Yeah, I think it is. Also, they were like, oh, they're not zombies, they're freakers.
Yeah, awful.
Yeah, that was
Zach,
a weird game.
Tell me all about, I know nothing about Dragon Age, and I'm very curious to hear what you thought of Dragon Age The Veilguard, which is the new name of Dragon Age.
Yeah, well, so I thought Dreadwolf was a much better name, but I guess like they were trying to move away from like naming it after the villain, and they were trying to make it more like, oh, this is like camaraderie, this is your team, this is your group, so you are the Veilguard, I guess. So I guess that makes sense. But we've been calling it Dreadwolf for several years now, so it's going to be weird to call it that. Also, to have the word "the" in there, like sandwiched between Dragon Age and Veilguard, it just it throws me off a little bit. But hard to say without seeing the gameplay, because we've seen and heard so many different rumors with this. Basically, this trailer was cinematic, and they were like, here's your different team members. You've got the scout, the detective, the mage killer, the veil jumper, the necromancer, the warden, the dragon hunter, and it's all coming fall 2024. Oh, also tune in on Tuesday at 8 a.m. for some actual gameplay. Which the big question we all have right now, in the absence of that gameplay showcase, is it actually going to be like God of War in terms of like the action combat? Will you maintain that Dragon Age Inquisition style thing where you could swap back and forth between like the action combat and the like basically tactical turn-based stuff where it was more strategic and you could like queue up attacks and then step the game forward frame by frame basically. That was how I got through the harder fights in that game. But yeah, I do hope it is a little bit more like God of War, because I like the God of War combat style, and I was never super impressed by the action combat of Dragon Age Inquisition, even though I did like that game overall. The other interesting thing I've heard about this is that they are sort of making it a little bit more Mass Effect-like, where instead of like having your whole crew out with you as you're going around, you have like 2 companions with you at a time.
Interesting.
And so I suppose that as you're doing your God of War style combat, you probably have like, I think if I remember correctly, in like Mass Effect, you had like some commands that you could give based on like the D-pad inputs.
Yeah, I remember that.
So I would imagine it'll be something like that, but they'll probably still hopefully maintain the ability to swap back and forth between characters on the fly so you can still play as all of them. And I do a little bit still hope that they have that option to switch to the more strategic, almost top-down style that they had, which is crazy that they built a game and basically built 2 completely different combat styles that worked off of each other and worked totally well. So I kind of hope that they do that again. I'm not the biggest on like knowing the lore and the story implications of like what they're showing in Dragon Age, or like remembering where things left off in Inquisition. I also never played the first or second one. I only played Inquisition, so I would not be the person to ask for like lore based stuff, but this is definitely up there for me in terms of stuff I'm anticipating for later this fall, for sure.
They followed that up with the classic theme from Starfield came on the screen, and then we saw a space station come into view. They revealed Starfield Shattered Space, which I guess is this a paid expansion, or is this just something that we're getting for free?
It was unclear to me. I was curious about that too. I was expecting them to say day one Game Pass, but then I was like, well, I mean, I guess of course it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. If you are not subscribed to Game Pass, could you just buy this separate and play without being subscribed? I guess I don't know, but I probably. It seems like it's based on House Varun, which did not get its own sort of side quest line like the other factions did in the main game, and everybody was like, well, why didn't House Varun get one? Well, here it is. It's going to be DLC.
Yeah, the most you got was during that main quest line where you had to like go into the ambassador's quarters, and it was very like creepy in there, but that was like really the only interaction that you would have like quest wise. I feel like
you get a little bit if you're doing the sort of loyalty mission for Andreja. But but other than that, you really don't get much with House Varun. So they're really sort of expanding on that with this
new
DLC.
Stuff available tonight as well. They added some new locations and some new like armors and items and whatnot, new events that happen. But this the Shattered Space thing is not going to be live today. It's happening in the fall, it seems.
Yeah, I don't think they said specifically. They just said coming 2024. But that is separate to that. As of tonight, as we're recording this, so Sunday, there's going to be some new stuff in there. Trackers Alliance, I couldn't tell what that meant, but new bounties, new locations, and like creation kit content from like Bethesda and content creators. I guess like stuff that you could decorate your ship or your whatchamacallit, your outposts with. Yeah. So
then Fallout 76 had a trailer. I've never played Fallout 76, but I know you played for a little bit. They're adding a new region, which is, I guess, the first time they've ever added to the map.
Yeah, so this makes sense to me, like feeding off of the success of the TV show and the fact that a lot of people have been playing Fallout games. They saw a huge spike in traffic on Fallout 76 following the TV show. So like sort of building on that and saying, hey, here's some new content. Good on them for having this ready to go. This is coming June 12th. So like, I guess this next week as we're recording this. And then also they teased that you'll be able to play as a ghoul early 2025.
I wonder if that will have any gameplay implications.
Yeah, that was my big question. Is this going to be like in the TV show where basically you heal over time?
I wonder if it'll allow you to go into like more radiated areas easier.
Yeah, that too. Maybe but alternatively, you'll also have to like take some sort of shot of some sort to keep yourself from dying. I don't know.
Zombifying.
Interesting.
Zach, there's an island with a lady on it, and that lady's painting a number. And if your age is that number, you're dead.
I didn't understand what this story was.
That's the story of Exposition 33.
Although also like the title screen for this said Claire Obscure Expedition 33. So is that the full title or is it just Expedition 33?
Unknown.
But this seems like some sort of turn-based combat with like similar button press mechanics to something like Super Mario RPG or like Sea of Stars. But like,
I also made that. I was like, oh, this is like Super Mario RPG because it is turn-based, but then you have button prompts when you do your attacks.
Yeah, but obviously going for a way more like photorealistic look. This seems weird. Like a game that is smart to be coming to Game Pass so that people will have the option to play it without having to buy it. I a little bit think the same thing for South of Midnight, which they showed again. We've seen this before. It looks all right. It's got an interesting art style for sure.
I'm into this, I think. I like any game that is third person sort of where you have movement mechanics like this where
Yeah.
I was trying to remember, what's that one game where you're in New York and you're like you have a parasite in you or something?
Oh, Prototype.
Yes, I kind of got like, obviously it's not like Prototype in a lot of ways, but the
It made me
mechanics,
think of Forspoken, so I don't.
yeah, it's a very movement based where you can like whip up stuff and then you can glide as well and do things. But it also gave me sort of like Devil May Cry vibes where you're like, you go into an area and then it's closed off and then you have to fight something, and then you get like orbs or whatever. But I was into this. I think I will check this out since it is coming to. It's not something I don't know that I would buy. I think you're right. It's another game where they're smart to put it on Game Pass. But I liked the vibe of it.
It did have a very cool look to it, for sure.
But something I will not check out is World of Warcraft: The War Within.
Now, I have to say, as they were playing this, I was like, oh, they're going to say coming to console. World of Warcraft on
Wouldn't
Xbox
that be something?
2025 or whatever. And then they did not. They were just like, oh, this is the next expansion to World of Warcraft coming August 26th. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, I don't really play that
missed
game.
Opportunity, I think.
Also, like, not even hey, this is on Game Pass for PC. So
yeah, that would have been crazy too. I think it's too much of a moneymaker to get people to subscribe to World of Warcraft alone. It's the only one that's really captured that ability to have a subscription for just that, and it's still going strong. So, I mean, don't break something that's not broken, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that's a fair point. So what do you think of Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater?
I liked this. I've never played a full Metal Gear game. I did try to play. I bought like a pack. I think I've talked about this on the podcast before. I bought a pack of like remasters back on like 360 or something of like the first and second and I think Peace Walker. And I couldn't really get into them because of the fixed camera angles. I never checked out Snake Eater, though, even though it is like third person. This looks interesting to me, and I like a stealth game. Famously, I love Thief is one of my favorite games. But I might check this out, actually. It looks very funny and quirky and cool. And they seem to have David Hayter back as the voice of Snake, which is cool.
Yeah, I am curious about this. I don't know if I'll play it, because like you, I don't have a lot of experience with this series. Though my one experience with it was, there was like, one of them was, I think it might have been 5, was on like a PlayStation Plus title at one point. And so I started it and I was like, man, this is really weird and I have no idea what's going on. And I kind of bounced off of it. And that has been my one sort of taste of that franchise.
I wish I did have the Kojima nostalgia. Because I think, like, I've watched someone play through all of the first and second Metal Gear games on just like Let's Plays on YouTube. And I think if I had played them as a kid, they would have blown my mind. But now I can appreciate how cool they are and how unique and like innovative they are, but I don't necessarily need to go back and play them. But I'll be interested to see how this reviews. If it is just like a straight, like, here's the game, but we've made these like quality of life improvements and it looks super nice, or what happens. There's no date yet for when this comes out, but they showed a lot of gameplay, so I mean, it's coming along.
Yeah, I was surprised for no actual release date that accompanied this trailer, but guess you got to see a little bit more of it. Speaking of seeing a little bit more of things, Sea of Thieves showed that season 13 is coming July 25th, but they had nothing else to go with it. Yeah. So not super exciting. Flintlock, The Siege of Dawn. What'd you think of this?
I forgot that we had seen this before, but I looked it up and I guess this is not a world premiere or anything. This is just something that is happening.
I remember seeing this, but I feel like it looked really different this time. Like there was some sort of creature that you're using to like jump forward to like these weird sort of points on the map as you're moving forward around.
The creature is actually the only thing I did remember.
Oh, really? Maybe
because it's your little big-eared fox guy.
Yeah, it was so weird to me, but
this seemed fine. This is another thing where you have movement mechanics, but I don't know if I like, as the name implies, I don't know if I like flintlock weapons.
Also, this is a Souls-like.
Yeah, that's the other thing that kind of turned me off of it. It seems like a lot of dodging is happening, a lot of rolling.
Another game that I think will benefit from being a day one Game Pass game.
Yeah, I agree.
But that's coming July 18th. And then Age of Mythology Retold, another day one Game Pass game coming on September 4th. This is a sort of an Age of Empires-like game, which is not really my genre. But the next thing I thought was really exciting. So they finally showed some gameplay of Perfect Dark.
Zach, this was my game of the show.
Was it? I thought maybe you would say that.
I have a lot of nostalgia for the original Perfect Dark. That was a cartridge that I brought with me to sleepovers so we could put it into someone's N64 and play the multiplayer because the multiplayer was great. It was very, very similar to GoldenEye, but like enhanced in a lot of ways where you could do the 4 people at a time split screen, and it had like a bunch of different crazy guns, and you could put like special effects on like multiplayer rounds and stuff. So I played a lot more of the multiplayer than the single player, but I do have nostalgia for the single player as well. I don't think this is going to be in any way related to that first game. I think it's going to be
I was going to ask you
reboot.
about that.
But because in the first one, it's like all about aliens. Like you straight up meet a little gray guy, and I think his name is Elvis, and you're like helping him out. And this one seems pretty Earth focused, but I got like real Deus Ex vibes from this, where it's like somewhat, it's not like super far future, but it's like maybe, 15, 20 years from now. So you have like the ability to record someone's voice and like use their voice print and like X-ray vision and stuff. And you're in like a cool setting that's like some like arcology city that is always the same temperature every day and stuff. From a long time ago, we saw a trailer for this. Who knows how long ago? 4 or 5 years ago. And the main thing they imparted to us in that trailer was that there's something going on with like a weather machine. And so it seems like that's maybe the focus is like, but there's also in this trailer, there's like a weird orb that you see at one point. I don't know what's going on. Who's to say? I mean, the last one was about aliens, so this one could also incorporate aliens. But I'm into this. I was very excited to see this is coming to Game Pass day one because I'll definitely check this out.
Seemed like some Mirror's Edge like parkour happening as well.
Some parkour happening as well. It seems like there's some close combat stuff where you're like punching people and like kind of
almost
sliding
John Wick
alongside.
style.
Yeah, John Wick style stuff. I'm into this. I can't wait to see more. Who's to say when we will see more? I don't think they gave a release date for this.
Yeah, no release date.
This is something they could have started the show with if they weren't so excited about Call of Duty.
Yeah,
because this is something where you're not sure what it is until he says, "Hello, Agent Dark," and then you.
I was gonna say they should have led the show off with this because it would have been the perfect thing to be like, we don't know what it is, and then all of a sudden you see the Perfect Dark logo come up, and everybody freaks out.
It would be cool, but this I'm very excited for this. This was very interesting to me.
Yeah, they made a great case for Game Pass with this showcase.
Very true.
This fall, I have no doubt that I will re-up my Game Pass subscription to check out a lot of this stuff, even though I guess Perfect Dark isn't going to be around quite yet, but there's going to be a bunch of other stuff from this showcase that'll be there. Then they had Diablo 4 Vessel of Hatred, a new DLC that's going to add a new class, new region, a new chapter of the story coming on October 8th. And then they had like another sort of cinematic trailer for Fable.
There was some gameplay.
Was there? Maybe I don't
Just
remember.
a little bit. No like UI or anything, but there was definitely some third person walking around in a city and stuff and some combat. Which is more than we got last time. Last time it was just like a, what would you call that? The Office style thing where the giant is talking. And this one was still kind of framed in that way where it's a talking head sort of a thing, but there was gameplay in the background. And this looked cool. Fable is another thing I didn't really ever play as a child, but I'm interested in this. Again, coming to Game Pass, so why wouldn't I play it?
Yeah, I was going to say, the one thing that will get me to possibly play this is being able to play it at no extra cost because of a Game Pass subscription. So,
yeah.
But that's coming 2025, no more specific date than that. And the one and only sort of hero shooter game as service game that they had as, as opposed to what Sony showed in their State of Play, was a game called Fragpunk, where basically it's a card-based first-person hero shooter coming in 2025. What did you think of this?
Thumbs down from Aaron.
I know you don't really like game of service games or card-based games, so it's sort of a double whammy. But it seemed to me like the card-based stuff is really more like, oh, it's your normal abilities, but we've put a card on it as like a visualization, and that's how we're pulling off making a card-based version of a hero shooter. But.
Well, and that's the main thing is they keep saying like the rules can change at any time. So these cards are meant to change the rules. So like one card reverses gravity, or one card makes there be tall grass everywhere. So it's like every round can be even more different. Like one card makes everyone's heads big, like big head mode, which I guess is an interesting idea. But again, yeah, it's not something I'm super gonna check out.
Yeah, and I don't know based on that trailer whether it's more of an Overwatch or like a Valorant, where it's like Counter-Strike but with heroes instead. But couldn't tell based on that. What did you think of Winter Burrow?
I like a little mouse, but something I might play this since it's on Game Pass. Again, I'll probably say that a lot.
Game Pass value add.
Yeah, exactly. But other than that, I don't know if I'll check it out. I would be more interested in the same vein. There's that Moomin's Valley thing, that Snufkin or whatever it is. I'd play that more than I would play this.
Yeah. That's coming early 2025. It had like some sort of hand-drawn sort of storybook art style game about mice. I don't really know what else to say about that one. Mixtape, though, I was surprisingly kind of into this. Some of it was like nostalgia for like the 80s or 90s, where they're really trying to sort of evoke that era of like youth and growing up in that era, and had sort of an art style vaguely similar to those Spider-Man animated movies, where there's like a slower frame rate of like movement within the frame. It seems like it's going to have a great 80s soundtrack, which is like right up my alley. So 2025 on Game Pass, so I will probably check that out when it comes out. Flight Simulator 2024. I haven't played any of the Flight Simulator games, but just based on how large the file size is, it's crazy to me that
there's a community for these, and it seems like they're really catering to them, because there are way more things you can do now. They were showing more activities, like you can do the commercial, which I think you've always been able to do. We can also do like deep sea rescue as well, and just a bunch of other little random things. So there's definitely variety now. So I think people who play Microsoft Flight Simulator and like have built out like rigs to play Flight Simulator will be happy for this. So because the last one was 2020, so they're due for an update. I'm excited for those people. But yeah, I probably will not check this out either.
Yeah. And then they had sort of an Elder Scrolls Online thing where it was sort of hey, it's the 10-year anniversary, so go play all the DLC for free for a limited time. Also,
the Golden Path.
Our Gold Road expansion is launching on June 18th, so here in like the next week or two. I don't know if I will check this out, but I was thinking about it recently. I was like, maybe I should jump back into ESO, because I started that expansion they had last year and I never finished it, so I was like, I should jump back in and finish that, but I have not done that yet. But I do like some ESO. Have you played any of the Life is Strange games?
I never have. They always looked too melancholy for me. Too sad.
I think that's the main reason I've avoided them.
But this seems like more of the same. So if you like Life is Strange, get ready for Life is Strange Double Exposure coming out to Xbox this October.
And then they showed sort of an extended little, I guess it seemed like an gameplay sequence, even though there was no actual gameplay. It was sort of
there was. I also realized that. So it was Indiana Jones, the Great Circle, and the thing they showed was like 5 or 6 minutes of just like cutscenes. There was not any part where you cut in and played. Yeah,
so I wasn't sure what was going on here, if they were like trying to show us like a long animated cutscene from the game, or if they were like, I don't know, trying to give us an impression of what gameplay was like, but they just didn't have any HUD elements or anything. Yeah. So it was very unclear to me what they were trying to get across with this particular scene that they decided to show. But that is coming 2024. It'll be on Game Pass. And is it just me, or are we in sort of a weird era where like you can make faces look fairly realistic, but the bodies like maybe the arms still look a little not quite right.
What did
there
you
was
think?
something a little bit off about the character models.
I agree. What do you think it sounded like for Harrison Ford?
I mean, it's fine. You can tell it's not Harrison Ford. There was no point when I was like, oh, it sounds exactly right. I was definitely like, oh, this is somebody doing a Harrison Ford impression. But
yeah.
What about you?
Fine. Yeah, I'll say it again. This is coming to Game Pass, so I'll check it out. It seems like it's going to be... I would not buy this,
but it is going to be on Game Pass, so maybe I will play it.
A first-person... I mean, it's an easy sell, kind of, because it's a high production quality, basically Uncharted, but with Indiana Jones in first person, and you have a whip. So, I'll check this out.
Also, another thing is don't overextend your welcome. Make this 10 to 12 hours at most.
Yeah.
And it'll be a great little Game Pass weekend playthrough. But don't make this a 20-hour thing is the only advice I can give you. And then a game called Mecha Break, which looks
we've seen before.
It looked like chaos. I couldn't tell what was happening half the time. But there's a beta coming in August, so that's out there. If you like sort of Gundam Wing style, it seemed like maybe PvP stuff. I don't know. And then a game called Wu Chang Fallen Feathers. What'd you think of this?
It's a Souls-like. I think even in the trailer they were like, a Souls-like action RPG.
Yeah. We're getting a lot of these. Just a ton of them. And I think this was another one that was but it's based on Chinese mythology. And it's just I feel like we're getting so many of them.
Yeah.
I mean, they all look really cool, but it's a lot.
It's a lot.
And then they showed Avowed, which I'm into. I think I will play that when it comes to Game Pass because I like Obsidian and I liked Outer Worlds. You have to be careful to not say the other one, Outer Wilds. It's Outer Worlds, right? I liked that one quite a bit. So this being the more ESO style one, I'll check that. Or not ESO.
They really played up
Elder
the
Scrolls.
there are 3 factions thing in this one. So it seems like you're going to be making a lot of choices to help different groups of people. I probably will check this one out too.
And then a game called Atomfall by Rebellion, which I cannot think off the top of my head what Rebellion has done before, but I know that name for that.
Didn't they make the Warriors game?
That sounds right, actually. I don't really remember this trailer, to be honest. Do you remember Atomfall?
I actually was just thinking that too. I have no memory of Atomfall.
I just remember the name, and then I don't remember anything about it. But then they showed another trailer for Assassin's Creed Shadows, which is coming November 15th.
This was wild to me, because Ubisoft is having their press conference tomorrow, so we saw a good bit of gameplay. I mean, there's going to be more of a deeper dive, I assume, but I figured this they wouldn't show any of this, but they showed some good stuff. We talked about, I think last week or the week before, neither of us are really super into Assassin's Creed these days, but it seems fine.
Yeah, and then there was Stalker 2, Heart of Chernobyl. How would you spell Chernobyl if you had to?
Yes, this was also a question I had, because they showed the thing, and I was like, is this Chernobyl? Is this different from Chernobyl?
Did they spell this wrong? What's going on?
I don't know. I mean, maybe that is the correct spelling, but
I don't know.
That was my one takeaway from this is this is a sequel because it's taking place in Chernobyl, not Chernobyl.
Yeah.
But maybe that's not true. I don't know.
But it's coming September 5th to Game Pass. It looked fine, but it's kind of not my style game. Yeah. And then they showed the all-digital Xbox Series X and S consoles.
Yes.
Surprised it's not a circular console?
Well, they also showed... oh, wait, maybe I'm wrong. I thought they showed a regular X that's also... Is this digital only? There's an all-digital Xbox Series S and all-digital Xbox Series X, and they showed a 2 terabyte special edition Xbox Series X with Galaxy Black. That's $600. And I think that did still have a CD tray or whatever.
Oh, did it? Yeah, that one looked kind of cool. It had sort of a space theme where it looked like it was still like black like the normal Series X, but it had like stars basically on it.
Yeah, that was cool.
The one more thing was not Silksong. It was a teaser cinematic trailer for Gears of War E-Day, which has no release date, and neither of us are really Gears of War fans, so this did not do much for us. Though I guess it is one of their big exclusives, so it makes sense for them to maybe position it this way. But
so this is a prequel, I guess, because E-Day, I don't know a lot about Gears of War, but what I do know is that the enemy threat is not alien, or I guess maybe it is alien, I don't know, but they didn't come from the sky. Gears of War bad guys came from the inside the earth. They like came up, and this is what this is. E-Day is Emergence Day, and I think it's the day that, what are they called? They're not called the Hive.
No.
Whatever their bad guys are called, emerged that day. So this is like a day one sort of prequel where you are first introduced to the main two Gears guys, who I think one of them is dead. It did appear
to be a young Marcus and Dom. So yeah, it makes sense that this would be a prequel.
Not super into this. Those games always seem too sad for me. Like they're always coming upon like horrible tableaus of just like suffering. But this is one, even though it is coming to Game Pass, like probably I'm not going to check out.
Yeah, I will always have fond memories of Gears 2 Horde mode in college with people in my dorm room, like everybody playing Horde mode. But that was not because of like the story, and it was only specifically because it was like a fun co-op thing to play with people. So that's more my interest in it, and I don't like, maybe it will still have Horde mode, but I'm kind of moved beyond that type of thing at this stage in my life, so probably will not play that as well.
But we still got the Nintendo Direct for Silksong. I want to make that very clear. I have not given up hope for Silksong this year.
It's still possible that it will happen this summer. Let's get into the Call of Duty Black Ops 6 Direct. This was less about multiplayer and zombies than I thought it was going to be, and it was more about, let's talk about the campaign.
And the movement.
Yes. So the one really interesting part about this was their increased focus on like movement and animations that'll be available across all game modes, but they showed omni movement, which is the ability to like slide and dive and be in prone with like full 360 degree range of motion.
Yeah.
Which I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Battlefield may have done this first. Maybe not quite to this degree, but I definitely remember being in prone and being able to still like turn your character a full 360 degrees. But I think maybe they're doing more with like the sliding and diving stuff. But I think you can do some of that in Battlefield as well. So I don't know. It's like the iPhone and Android of the games world is Call of Duty and Battlefield. So who did it first? I don't know. But they also showed intelligent movement, which sort of reduces the keys needed to enable different movements like sprint, mantle, and crouch and stuff like that. And you'll have like options to kind of fine tune some of those inputs. I don't know how that works for like a controller versus like mouse and keyboard, but they're definitely put a lot of emphasis on like movements and animations. The other animation part of that was they've increased their hit zones. So like if you shoot somebody, the hit zones have increased from 4 to 9 to make the reactions to a character being shot by a bullet like way more realistic. So like if you shoot them in like the right shoulder, it'll look different than if you shot them, somewhere else in the body. So I guess it's just more realism. So I guess that's a good thing. Yeah, what did you think of what they showed with this stuff?
I came into this being like, whatever, Call of Duty, I'll watch this. But the Omni movement stuff is interesting to me. And also just like the crazy set pieces that they showed. Like there's going to be a level that's in like a high class casino. And then there's also going to be just like other crazy set pieces in this. I didn't enjoy navigating the UI. That was another thing they said, is you can move the UI around in your HUD. But as far as like the game UI of having to click through a bunch of stuff, I didn't like launching Warzone when we tried to play Warzone.
Yeah, that was the one thing they needed to show with this was, hey, we've completely revamped the Call of Duty interface so that if you want to launch this and just like group up with a friend and jump into Warzone or jump into Black Ops 6 multiplayer, we've made that way simpler.
Yeah.
And they did not say that, so I assume it's going to be just as weird and chaotic as it was last time we tried it.
But this is interesting to me. And I might actually, I mean, again, it's on Game Pass, so I would maybe download this and check it out. I don't know if I would get into the multiplayer, but I would maybe play through the campaign just to see, because, I mean, you're going to see all the money on the screen with this type of game where it's going to look insane and going to be super high res and stuff and, like, exquisitely detailed everywhere. So this was interesting. This kind of made me want to play it, which I was not expecting.
Yeah, they did say for the campaign missions, they have like parts where you can sort of talk or barter your way through parts of the level.
That was interesting.
And so they talked about how they think people will want to play them over and over again to see how they can play out in different ways. So I thought that was interesting. I feel maybe I just haven't paid close enough attention to Call of Duty for a while, but it seems like they've not put as much focus on the campaign in a while. So they're really going for it with this one for sure.
It's interesting. I'll be excited to check it out in October. October 25th is when it's coming out.
Yeah, and then for the multiplayer, they did say they're bringing back Prestige mode, like the sort of original Prestige mode, where basically what that is in multiplayer, you level up from like 1 to whatever the highest level was. I think it was like 50 in the old days of Call of Duty. I don't know if that's still the case, but then you've unlocked everything by that point, and you had the option to Prestige, which basically resets everything, and you start over, so you can still sort of have that fun chase of like, let's unlock the next thing, let me play one more match and keep unlocking stuff. But because you Prestige, you have a little icon that shows you're like, hey, I'm super hardcore because I have already gone through this multiple times or whatever. And you can do that 10 times. And I remember that being the case in Call of Duty 4, which was like when this started. And they're like, we're going back to that. And so you can do 10 levels of Prestige. But then on top of that, there's like Master Prestige with like over 100 or 1,000 levels or something crazy like that. I don't know.
999 levels with a prize that is at this point classified.
Yeah, which I'm sure somebody crazy will get there within like the first month, and you'll be like, how did you even do this? That's impossible.
Yeah.
They're bringing back theater mode as well, so you can watch your best matches if you really want to. And then they talked a little bit about zombies, where there's going to be some new maps at launch, and they said we're going to do our actual official worldwide multiplayer reveal on August 28th with like a beta to follow this fall ahead of launch. So, and the game is coming on October 25th.
And they did have a little cheeky thing where they were like, one of their people was like, hey, can I talk about Warzone? And someone was like, no, you can't talk about that yet. So I guess that's changing at some point, but we don't know when.
I feel like they will show that, like in that August 28th worldwide multiplayer reveal, they'll be like, also, here's what's coming with Warzone. But maybe they'll do a separate thing for that. Who knows? But yeah, this looked cool. Sometimes I forget just how big a game Call of Duty is, because you've got like the campaign, you've got like tons of stuff to do in multiplayer, you've got like a co-op mode with zombies, and then you have Warzone, which is like free to play. So it's a lot of game for sure, and the fact that it's going to be on Game Pass is like a huge value add for Game Pass for sure.
And that was pretty much it for these. So like we said, Ubisoft has a thing happening this week, and fingers crossed the Nintendo Direct will also be this week, but it could be next week or the week after, depending on, I mean, it's sometime in June. So we'll have more fake E3 news next show.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Ubisoft thing and then the Dragon Age gameplay reveal probably next week. And if there is a Nintendo Direct between then and now, we'll talk about
Hopefully
that.
Hopefully there is.
A little sort of bonus sort of E3 time thing. Game Informer posted a couple of new gameplay todays showing some they're demos for games that are coming this year. I don't know when they're coming out, but it was a game called Nico DeRico. Have you heard of this? It's like
I watched that new gameplay today. It's like kind of a Crash Bandicoot meets Donkey Kong type of thing.
Yeah, Donkey Kong Country / Crash Bandicoot sort of thing that seemed kind of fun. And then they had another one called Wolfhound, which is like a Metroidvania that seems to be inspired by Metal Gear.
This looked very cool to me, actually.
I thought it looked really cool, so I did wishlist that one. But so I think those demos are available now. So if you want to check out some new stuff as you're getting hyped for new games because of all these showcases, go check those out. Let's talk about what we've been playing and watching.
Zach, it seems like maybe you have watched something I'm very excited to hear you talk about.
Yeah, I finally got around to watching Godzilla Minus One.
What'd you think?
I liked it. I liked it better than the Western-made Godzilla movies, I would say. It is that weird thing of like the Western movies have sort of cast Godzilla as this like benevolent sort of good guy who's like there to defend the world and, you know, humans and the earth from these other monsters. But that's not like the original iteration of Godzilla, which was like a metaphor for, you know, the atomic bombs being dropped on, you know, Hiroshima and Nagasaki during World War II. And this was like just after that when they did that first movie. Yeah. And so they're kind of going back to that. And it is interesting to see like sort of post World War II era, you know, Japan, where people are just trying to pick up the pieces and put their lives back together. And so you have this like really unconventional family where you have this guy who was supposed to be, what is the term?
Kamikaze.
Yeah, a kamikaze pilot. And he...
Although they never use that phrase in the movie. And so I wonder if that's like an American phrase or something, because they never say the word kamikaze. Because I watched the subbed version, not the dubbed version. So I wonder if there's another word for that.
Yeah, maybe there is. I thought I saw it but it might have been, in the subtitles. So I don't know. I don't know how they would say it in Japanese, but yeah,
he was supposed to die, but he dodged it.
Yeah, and so then he goes back to his hometown, and realizes, well, because he sort of failed, people blame him for, you know, that town being wiped out because he didn't stop their enemy in World War II. And then he meets this woman who has a baby that she is not hers, but she's taken care of, and they become this unconventional family unit, basically. And it's also in a weird place for them, because like Godzilla is a threat that's attacking, but their allies are like off, you know, doing their own thing, because the US and Russia are like getting into this Cold War situation. And so they're kind of on their own, but they've been like sort of demilitarized, so they don't really have the resources to be fighting this giant monster. And so it's interesting and sort of heroic to see these people who had just survived a war sort of come together and, you know, be willing to make like the ultimate sacrifice to like defend what's left of Japan from this giant monster. So I thought it was really good, and definitely had a lot more heart than the new Western King Kong and what is that new one? King Kong and Godzilla.
New Horizons or something
like that.
Or no, Fallen Empire?
Maybe that's what it's called. But yeah, I haven't seen that one yet. But they're like weird, fun spectacles in their own way, but they're just like pretty brain dead by comparison, I would say.
This one was great. I really loved it. I have gone on record as saying I like Shin Godzilla more, but I think that's because Shin Godzilla is a happier movie, or at least more hopeful.
Yeah.
Whereas this one is, it's a movie about grief, really, where like different ways to deal with grief, which it's really, really good. But I also am more likely to rewatch Shin Godzilla just because it's not going to bum me out at times.
I still haven't seen that, and I think it is on like Amazon, maybe.
It's so good. It's maybe my favorite. I mean, I haven't watched a lot of the old Godzilla movies, so I'm not an authority. But it's my favorite Godzilla movie that I've watched.
I should watch that one, but yeah, this Minus One is very well written, so I thought it was pretty good. But yeah, that's all I have watched. What about you?
I haven't watched that many things, but I did resub to Game Pass in anticipation of this weekend because I thought some stuff might drop. And so I think I talked last week about playing through Ori and the Will of the Wisps. I beat that, and it was great.
Oh, nice.
I have now started playing Ori and the Blind Forest, which is very different. Definitely Will of the Wisps took like a lot of lessons from Hollow Knight and improved in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But the Blind Forest has been fun. I've been enjoying it. I also checked out Humanity, which is that game where you play as that like dog made of light.
Yeah, I started that game. I don't think we talked about it on the podcast though.
I'm liking it. It's been fun. I don't know how far I'll get in it, but I like the puzzles in it. But those two games and also I didn't put this in the show notes, but I also downloaded Forza Horizon 5.
Oh, really?
And I've been battling you.
Oh, have you now? Oh, yeah, because I forgot that's a feature in that game.
I keep seeing your Drivatar, and because you're my only friend that has played this, anytime I do anything, it's like, well, you did this, but your friend did this, and it's always you.
I didn't even play that much of that game. I just like checked it out for a little while.
But it's fun to just like mess around in.
Yeah.
Because I played a bunch of Mario Kart a couple weeks ago. And I was like, man, I want to continue to play racing games. And so I decided to check out Forza Horizon. But other than that, those are kind of the only things I've been doing.
I did jump back into Rusty's Retirement. It was just like a convenient thing to be like, oh, I need to like go to YouTube and watch these showcases. So I'm just going to pull up Rusty's Retirement while I'm doing that. And it's great. It's that game that plays out on like the lower third of your screen, and you can have it as an overlay. So like you can be working in your browser or watching stuff on YouTube or doing whatever else on your computer. And it's just kind of this like idle farming game that's sort of playing itself almost. And you just take the resources that you earn from like growing crops and stuff, and you just like build more stuff, and you can make all these drones that sort of automate the processes for you. And you just keep unlocking more stuff to grow and new stuff to, build around your farm. And it's like a really fun, satisfying little thing to just like gamify, I don't know, doing other stuff on your computer, I guess. But I highly recommend it. Also, I realized in the course of playing it this weekend that I unlocked another map. So there's actually like 2 or 3 other maps to play in this game that I didn't even realize was the case. So I'm going to have to maybe play a little bit more of it and see what these other maps are like. So
interesting.
It's very cheap, and it's the perfect podcast game. I know we did an episode where we talked about this game, and it sort of led into a discussion about like recommendations for podcast games, but just a reminder, this is a great podcast game, so definitely check it out. On that note, do you have any parting wisdom?
Yes.
And it is...
My parting wisdom is forthcoming. It is that... My parting wisdom is that it's very easy to change out your own cabin air filter in your car.
Oh, yeah.
So if you want to do that, it's very easy to do. Just go to an AutoZone and get the one for your car. They'll have it probably. And then just watch a YouTube video. For me, it was only like 6 screws, and I just popped it out. I popped the glove box out, swapped it out, and I was good to go. Very cheap to do. Cheaper than going to like a Jiffy Lube and having them do it for you. So yeah, don't be afraid to work on your own car, I guess is my parting wisdom.
Sounds like good wisdom to me. Well, on that note, go ahead and follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter at Starside Cafe, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.